Now for our story. In the dining room of his luxurious home in Wakefield, Ben Calvert sat at the head of the table, flanked by his daughter, Kitt Meade, and Jessie Calvert, his wife. They were sipping their after-dinner coffee by candlelight, for Jessie knew quite well that her well-kept graying hair, her carefully guarded skin, showed Ben to best advantage. At first glance, one might have imagined this to be a happy family. A prosperous father, handsome mother, and beautiful young daughter. But looking more closely, one could have seen the little lines of discontent on Jessie's brow, the downward curve of Ben Calvert's mouth, and the nervousness of Kitt. Nervousness increased by her recent encounter with Lisa Fenner. But now, Kitt stamps out the stub of her cigarette in the ashtray and turns to her father.
Let me have a cigarette, please, Dad.
But you just put one out, Kitt.
So what? I want another one.
You're turning into a regular chain smoker. Not good for you.
Oh, Dad.
Well, I don't like it.
Well, your father's right, Kitt. An excess of anything will ruin your health.
I'm not interested in your opinion, Jessie.
Well, it's true just the same.
I'll handle this, Jessie. Kitt, something's troubling you. I know that. I wish you'd tell me what it is.
Look, Dad, all I did was ask for a cigarette. And between you and Jessie, you're making a 3-act play of it. Ye God, there's no peace in this house.
There won't be either, until you get hold of yourself. I've never seen you in such a bad state of mind. You're touchy, irritable, always on the defensive. Imagining insults?
They're not imagined where your charming wife's concerned, I can tell you that.
Oh, nonsense, Kitt. Heaven knows I don't like quarreling and unpleasantness. But nothing would please me better than to see you in a cheerful frame of mind for a change. The way you are now, it would take a plaster saint to get along with you.
And you're far from that, aren't you, Jessie?
Well, I don't pretend to be an angel or a saint. But that's no reason I should let people walk over me.
Now, wait a minute, you two. Why can't the three of us talk things over calmly and quietly once in a while? I'm concerned about Kitt. I'll admit it. But I don't think you're helping things, Jessie. You seem to delight in rubbing her the wrong way.
Oh, really, Ben? Sometimes I marvel at the way you manage to twist things, so I'm always to blame. Never Kitt.
I expect you to have more self-discipline, Jessie. You're a mature woman. Kitt's young. She's in a very difficult situation. All this trouble with Bill Meade. She needs sympathy, understanding.
I appreciate your solicitude, Dad, but I wish you wouldn't talk about me as if I weren't here.
Well, it worries me to see you unhappy, my dear. And as I told you the other day, I believe the whole solution is in trying not to be so self-centered. You should think of other things. Especially, you ought to devote more time to your child.
Well, what do you expect me to do? Miss Thorndyke takes care of all of his needs.
Yes, I know that. She looks after his physical welfare. But after all, she's only his nurse. He's getting to an age now where he's beginning to notice things. He needs more personal affection.
Well, if you think I'm going to spend my time singing lullabies, you're mistaken.
I wouldn't worry about the baby too much, Ben. Miss Thorndyke gives him a great deal of affection. That's one of the advantages of your wealth, you see. You can even buy love for your child.
Oh, don't be so melodramatic, Jessie. Buy love. You make us sound like monsters. And I notice you don't mind spending Dad's money.
I've had as much of this as I want to hear. Why can't you two be agreeable to each other?
All right, Ben. I'm willing to try. What shall we talk about? The weather? That little Mrs. Fenner who was here this afternoon? Or
Mrs. Fenner? Who's she?
a friend of Kitt's, apparently.
Who is she, Kitt? I've never heard of her.
Oh, she's just a girl I knew in California.
And she's here now, in Wakefield?
Yes, came in on the afternoon train. I entertained her until Kitt came in.
Well, why didn't you ask her to dinner, Kitt? Do you good to entertain once in a while.
She's not a bosom friend of mine, Dad. She's just an acquaintance.
Well, that's not what she said. Although I'll admit she acted rather strange.
Strange?
Well, she seemed awfully nervous. And she looked so unhappy. The only time she showed any animation at all was when I took her out on the terrace to show her the baby. She was quite taken with him.
Oh, that reminds me, Jessie. In the future, if I want people to see the baby, I'll handle it myself.
I was only trying to be pleasant to the girl. She asked to see him. I couldn't very well refuse.
I came home and found her out there all alone. At least you'd think Miss Thorndyke should have known better than to leave her there.
Well, good heavens, what difference does it make?
I don't like it, that's all. Anything could happen.
What, for instance? You weren't afraid she'd kidnap the child, were you?
Oh, don't be silly, Jessie.
Well, I simply don't see why you're making such a fuss about it.
Kitt's right, Jessie. You can't be too careful.
Oh, it's absurd. If I ever saw a harmless young woman, that...
Tell me about her, Kitt. Is she planning to stay in Wakefield?
No, of course not. She happened to be passing through, so she said hello. That's all there is to it.
Well, it's No use trying to get any information from Kitt, then. Especially about anyone from California. For some reason, she delights in being mysterious.
Her father started to speak, but Kitt forestalled any further conversation about Lisa Fenner by excusing herself abruptly, retiring to her room. Her father's questions and Jessie's curiosity made her uneasy. And yet, she told herself, she had nothing to fear. Lisa was gone. The baby's son Kitt had tricked her into relinquishing was upstairs in the nursery right now. And the threat of the truth's coming out was more remote than ever. But Kitt would have been far from reassured had she known that at this very moment at the Lane farm, Dr. Lewis is leaving the bedroom in which Aunt Mary had placed Lisa when Randy brought her home after rescuing her from the icy waters of the river. Now, Aunt Mary looks at the doctor anxiously.
Is she all right, Doctor?
Yes, I gave her a sedative. She'll drop off to sleep pretty soon.
No, poor little thing. I feel so sorry for her.
She's had a bad shock of some kind, besides the exposure. Main thing we have to look out for is pneumonia. Lucky she got help so soon.
I almost think it's more than luck, Doctor. Perhaps it's providence.
What happened exactly, Aunt Mary? I didn't understand how she...
Well, it seems that Randy and Lefty were walking along the riverbank. They'd been rabbit hunting. This girl was standing up on the bridge. Randy says they wondered about her. It was so cold this afternoon. She was out there all alone, not even wearing a coat. Then, just as they started away, Randy heard the railing crack. It gave way, and before he realized, she'd crashed through into the water.
I've been worried about that old bridge for years. Thank heaven Randy was there. Might have been a tragedy.
Yes, thank heaven. That's why I say it was more than luck. Randy's being right on the spot.
Well, perhaps you're right, Aunt Mary. Young girl like that, so much to look forward to.
She's a lovely-looking girl, too.
Yes, very pretty.
I only hope we can help her. She seems to be so frightened, unhappy. Her eyes when they carried her in.
Well, if anyone can help her, Aunt Mary, you can. I didn't want to question her, but if something's troubling her...
The main thing is for her to get her strength back. Later, if she wants to tell her story, ask our advice. That's different.
Yes, that's the best way. And from the few things she did say, I've an idea there's something mighty wrong. Something that's shaken up her whole life. Perhaps if it hadn't been an accident...
Yes, I had that feeling, too. I wonder where she comes from. She didn't mention, did she?
Not a word to me.
I don't think she's from anywhere around here. Lefty says he doesn't recognize her, and I'm sure I don't. We don't even know her name yet.
She may be visiting somewhere nearby.
Perhaps.
In any case, Aunt Mary, there's no doubt that young woman could use your help. She needs someone to talk to, maybe to confide in. If she's to get a new lease on life, she'll have to unburden herself. And for the time being, I think it's better not to leave her alone any more than you can help. Try to get her mind off herself.
Yes, I'm sure you're right, Doctor, and I'd better be getting back to her now.
Good. I'll stop by tomorrow and see how she's getting along. Give her plenty of eggs and milk, and nourishing soups. And if she has trouble sleeping, you might give her another one of those tablets.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Don't worry. I'm sure she's going to be all right, physically. As to her state of mind, she'll recover from the shock of her experience fairly soon. And if something else is troubling her, well, I'll leave that entirely to you. And if she does need someone to confide in, she's very fortunate to have been brought to this house, to you.
Dr. Lewis had no idea how right his remark was, nor the possible far-reaching results. For if Aunt Mary should be successful in gaining Lisa's confidence, should discover the truth about Lisa's baby son, then Kitt Meade's fears will be more than justified. Now for our story. It was early evening. Aunt Mary's niece, Peggy Douglas, had spent the afternoon with a friend from her high school days, now a happily married young woman and the proud mother of a new baby girl. The two young people had talked over old times, laughing indulgently at their adolescent joys and sorrows, which now, a few years later, seemed so long ago. As he drove home, Peggy was still in a cheerful, reminiscent mood. But as he turned into the little drive which led to the Lane farm from the main road, a car pulled away from the house. As it passed her, Peggy recognized the car with sudden alarm. It was Dr. Lewis's. Something must be wrong. Hurriedly, she pulled up at the side of the house, burst into the living room, her face white. Lefty was sitting by the fire, alone.
Lefty, what's happened? I saw Dr. Lewis. Is it Aunt Mary?
No, Aunt Mary's all right.
Well, then where's Randy?
Well, Randy's upstairs. He's safe and sound. Now, don't get upset. There's been a little accident.
An accident? Oh, Lefty, when I saw Dr. Lewis leaving, I knew...
It's all right now. Some young woman was on that old bridge. You know, the one near the rapids?
Oh?
She was leaning against the railing and broke, and she fell into the water.
Oh, Lefty, that's dreadful. Who?
I don't know. Luckily, Randy and I happened to be on the spot. Randy pulled her out.
Is she all right?
Yeah, he got to her just in time.
Thank heaven.
We brought her back here. She's upstairs in your aunt's room.
Well, how is she?
Dr. Lewis seems pretty sure she'd be okay, at least physically.
How did you get her all the way home from the falls?
Randy stayed with her, and I rushed back here and got the truck.
Oh. It's so cold tonight. That river must be icy.
According to Randy, it is. But we made a fire, and that kept him from freezing till we got back.
Is Aunt Mary with her now?
Yeah, and Dr. Lewis thought she oughtn't to be left alone.
Oh, no, she shouldn't, I'm sure. I wonder what she was doing down there all alone.
So do I. Haven't had time to check with Randy yet. She may have told him something
Hello,
while I was...
Peggy.
Randy.
I suppose you've heard.
Yes, Lefty was just telling me.
Oh, gosh, these dry clothes sure feel good.
I'll bet they do.
Randy, shouldn't you be in bed?
What? Just because I had a little swim?
Oh, Randy, be sensible.
No, I feel fine now. Except that I'm powerful hungry.
Well, I only hope you don't catch cold.
Oh, don't you worry about me, Peggy. That ducking was a pleasure compared with some of the things I've done these last few years.
I'll bet. They don't exactly coddle you fellas in the Marines, do they?
Oh, brother. Hey, Mom still in with the girl?
Yeah. Randy, did she say anything? I figured she might have given some hint as to who she is or where she comes from while you two were waiting for the truck.
No. Of course, I didn't want to pester her with a lot of questions. I did ask her her name, but she wouldn't even tell me that.
Strange, out there all alone.
I've been trying to remember if I've seen her around here before, but I don't place her at all.
Well, then she's probably from out of town.
It must be.
Wonder what she's doing in Wakefield.
Well, Aunt Mary may find out. If the girl wants to tell anyone, she'll tell Aunt Mary.
Yeah, leave it to Mom. Well, I've seen absolute strangers start talking to her, shopping or places like that, on buses. Before you know it, they're telling her their troubles.
Yes, I've seen them, too, lots of times. I always wonder how they know she's that kind of person.
They just do, that's all.
Yeah. Well, the only impression I got was that this girl is awfully unhappy about something.
Oh, what a shame. Lefty says she's young, too.
She is. And quite beautiful.
Well, I only hope Aunt Mary can win her confidence so we can find out what's the matter and try to help her.
Yeah. But I'm afraid Mom may not get very far with her.
Why not?
She told me she was sorry I'd saved her life.
Randy.
So you see, she doesn't want to be helped.
Randy Lane's statement was tragic but true. For as she lay in the bedroom of this strange house, Lisa Fenner felt only a numb despair. Aunt Mary had entered the room silently, and sat down at the bedside and put her hand gently over the girl's small white one, which was clenched tight as she fought to repress her sobs. Gradually, the convulsive shudders had lessened, and now she lay quiet.
There. Yes, that's better.
Oh, I'm so ashamed. All this trouble for you.
Don't you worry about that. We're just glad you're here with us. You're safe.
I only wish I were glad to be safe. But I'm not sure. When I felt that water closing over my head after the wet railing broke, I was almost ready to give up.
Perhaps it wasn't intended that you should give up. Perhaps that's why Randy was there.
But there's nothing ahead for me. Nothing at all.
No, now you mustn't think that. It's just that your vision is a little clouded at present. You can't see what's ahead. But there is something. Something good. There has to be.
No, not for me. It would have been better if he hadn't been there.
Oh, now you mustn't say that.
Oh, I know it's a dreadful thing to say. But it's true.
No.
That young man who saved my life. Who is he?
He's my son, Randy.
He was very kind. It's not that I'm ungrateful, but now I don't know what to do, where to go.
Well, the first thing you have to do is get well. By the way, I haven't even introduced myself. I'm Mary Lane. Almost everyone calls me Aunt Mary.
Aunt Mary?
Yes. I guess they all picked it up from Peggy. Oh, she's my niece. Just about your age. I think you two will like each other.
How can you think that? Why, I'm just a stranger.
Yeah, I can tell. I know a lot about you, even though I don't know who you are.
I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you why.
No, my dear. I'm not asking you to tell me. Doesn't matter. You see, I know all I need to know right now. I know that you're young, sensitive, very unhappy about something. And that somehow you've just lost your courage for the time being. That's enough for me to know.
Now I know what he meant. Your son.
Randy?
Yes. We were sitting by the fire after he told me he was bringing me home. When I told him I couldn't go to his house, that I was a stranger, he said, you won't be a stranger to my mother.
Randy knows how I feel about people because he's very much the same way himself.
He was very kind. I must thank him.
Well, the best thanks you could give Randy would be for us to let us help you get well.
Is he all right now? It'd be dreadful. It was so cold.
Now, don't you worry about Randy. He's upstairs now getting into some dry clothes. He'll be all right.
He's awfully nice.
Yes. I'm very proud of Randy. He's been overseas with the Marines. He's just been home a few days.
Now you have your son again. Your own son.
Yes. After 3 years.
You must have missed him terribly.
No one could know how much. No one who never had a son.
I know.
There were many times during the years Randy was away when I felt I couldn't go on. I had to fight against the fear. And sometimes it seemed so hopeless. But I knew it wouldn't help Randy for me to give up.
But you weren't alone.
No, I wasn't alone. I had Peggy and Leslie.
It's so different when you have no one. There's no reason for going on. That's why it didn't.
Sometimes, dear, we can't see the reason. But it's always there. Everyone is needed in his own way. Perhaps you don't believe it now, but you will. I'm sure of that.
I was needed. But I forfeited my rights.
You just think that now, dear, because you're depressed.
No, it's true. I was weak, greedy. Now it's too late.
Oh, it's never too late. Don't you see, my dear? The fact that you acknowledge your mistake...
Oh, but I can't go back. Make things right again. I was responsible for a life, and I failed. So what does my life matter? Since I failed that other one.
Aunt Mary saw the girl's eyes fill with tears. She wondered anxiously what the young woman meant. Responsible for a life, she'd said, and she'd failed. Well, Aunt Mary thought she must be patient. Let the young woman tell her story when she was ready. And if Lisa Fenner does tell her story, does confide in her, Aunt Mary may have the solution to Bill Meade's tangled life, may put an end to Kitt Meade's scheming. Now for our story. Only a few hours ago, Lisa Fenner had left Ben Calvert's luxurious home in Wakefield after pleading with Ben's daughter, Kitt, for her baby son. But Kitt Meade had convinced Lisa that she had no right to claim the child, that she'd relinquished her right to him. Walking blindly through the cold, windy dusk, Lisa had found herself on a bridge overlooking the river. In despair, she told herself there was no reason to go on. She'd forfeited her motherhood. She stood leaning on the railing, looking into the deep water which flowed past. Then suddenly there was a splintering of rotten wood. The next moments had been terrifying. The icy waters closing over her head, the instinctive struggle for air. And then the sensation of being pulled back to reality as Aunt Mary Lane's son, Randy, brought her to safety. Now she lies safe and warm in a bedroom of the Lane farm, with Aunt Mary sitting quietly beside her. A strange house and a woman she doesn't know. Lisa has just said,
I was responsible for her life, and I failed.
Responsible for a life, my dear? I don't think I understand.
No, of course you don't. You couldn't.
Well, perhaps I'd better go. You're tired.
Oh, no. No, please don't leave me alone. I am tired. I've been alone so long.
Well, of course, dear. If you're sure you want me to stay.
Oh, I do. With you, I feel the way I felt when I was a child. And Mother put me to bed because I'd caught a cold.
I'm so glad.
It all seems so far away now. Everything that happened. When I stood on that bridge, I was thinking about my life. And then when the railing broke,
You mustn't feel that way anymore.
I don't know. I've no right to be here. I don't belong.
Yes, you do. We want you. And so you do belong.
But then I never really belonged anywhere. Never had a real home.
Never. But your mother and father.
They died when I was 13. After that, I never lived in any one place very long. People looked after me the best they could, but it seems to me now I was always lonely.
But surely you've known some happiness.
The only thing that ever made me happy was my dancing.
Oh, so you're a dancer. Well, well.
Yes. But I'm not a dancer now. Not anymore.
You gave it up? Completely?
Yes. I haven't danced since Lance went away.
Lance?
He was my husband.
What do you mean he went away?
I lost him. He just left me. Went away.
I see.
But that was a long time ago.
Well, it couldn't have been so very long. You're very young.
And we were just kids when we got married. We thought we'd always be like that. Dancing, happy, going from place to place. Each new town was exciting. We didn't even mind the traveling, the dusty trains, the little hotels. As long as we had each other and people liked our dancing.
Couldn't you keep it like that? What happened?
We started to be more successful. We got engagements in swanky hotels and nightclubs, and Lance began to change. I guess the success went to his head.
I see. That's too bad.
He'd come in just in time for us to go on, and as soon as our number was finished, he'd disappear again.
Well, Lisa, perhaps he's learned his lesson and his mistake by now. He can't have forgotten any more than you have. Perhaps now he'd like to straighten things out.
Oh, you think that's the reason why I've said some of the things I have? Because of Lance.
Is there another reason, then?
Yes, there is. But it's very difficult to talk about. In a way, it's all connected with Lance. After he left me, I couldn't stay in San Francisco. Everything reminded me. I wanted to get away. I had a friend who was living near the ocean in Southern California. I went there. I tried to forget Lance. Forget the past.
It's not easy to cut away part of one's life.
I tried so hard, but it kept coming back to me. I thought this friend would be able to help me. I thought I had an answer, but then I began to realize that wouldn't work either. I knew I was still alone.
You mustn't fear loneliness, my dear. Everyone's alone, in a sense. And yet, no one ever need be alone.
I suppose you're right. But the strong people don't mind. They're not afraid of the blackness. Oh, Aunt Mary, I deserve to be unhappy. It's a punishment for the mistake I've made.
Punishment? I see why you might blame yourself, but perhaps you're exaggerating. Perhaps it isn't as bad as you think.
I wish I could believe that we're all victims of circumstances, that we have no control over what happens to us. But I can't.
No, dear, I believe we're not victims of anything, unless it's our own decisions. Being human, sometimes we choose the wrong thing, it's true.
Well, that's what I did. I chose the wrong thing, and now I'm paying for it.
I've always felt there was a way to rectify a wrong deed or a wrong choice, Lisa. It may take a great deal of courage and self-sacrifice, but to punish yourself by mental torture, to imagine that the world is against you.
How can you help thinking the world's against you when everything goes wrong?
Have you ever asked yourself, is the world against me, or am I against the world?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, don't you see? When you want to give up, stop trying, you're working against life. You're not giving it a chance.
Oh, but I have. For so long, I've kept on hoping that everything would turn out all right. And for a while, it seemed as if it might. I didn't expect to have everything just the way I wanted it either. I was willing to compromise, to sacrifice one thing in order to have another. But you see, I sacrificed the wrong thing.
Can't you tell me what it was? The thing you gave up?
Oh, I want to. Believe me, I do, Aunt Mary. But it would just make things worse. No, it's hopeless. It's no use. That's why I wish your son hadn't been there today. By this time, nothing would have mattered.
You know, when we first began talking today, you said that. I felt then it was wrong. But now, since you've told me a little about yourself, I'm positive you're mistaken.
But I can't see how.
Lisa, I can see that you were young and attractive. That was a good enough reason alone. But now you've told me about Lance. The love you once had for each other.
Oh, but that's all over.
No, it can't be over. Because you don't want it to be in your heart. And if it's still alive for you, it's not over.
Whether it is or not won't change it.
Well, it could. If you wanted it to enough.
No, it's too late. I thought there was some hope, too, when I came here to Wakefield. There was something I wanted more than anything in the world. I thought I had a right to claim it. But it didn't work.
Do you know why?
Oh, I suppose because things never do happen like that. We don't get a chance to retrieve something from the past to make up for our mistakes. And with someone like Kitt...
Kitt? Me?
Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, Aunt Mary, please forget what I said. Please.
Kitt. Me. Are you sure, dear, you don't want to tell me about Kitt?
Lisa Fenner only turned her face to the wall, closed her eyes. Aunt Mary was puzzled, worried. The girl's inadvertent mention of Kitt Meade's name, her regret that she'd let the name slip. What could it mean? The answer to that question, Aunt Mary, would shock you. For the answer is that Lisa Fenner is the mother of the baby boy Kitt pretends is her own. A child to which Kitt has convinced Lisa she must relinquish all claim. Yes, that's the answer. Will Lisa give it?